You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello and welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Today we have Bryan Clayton, who is CEO and co-founder of GreenPal, an online marketplace that connects homeowners with local lawn care professionals. Entrepreneur Magazine has called GreenPal the Uber for lawn care. It has over 200,000 active users who complete thousands of transactions per day. Welcome, Bryan.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's fantastic. And there's so much I want to ask you about. So first of all, let's talk. We're going to talk about your story in a minute, but just give us a little rundown briefly on what GreenPal does.
Yeah. So GreenPal is a 12-year overnight success. My two co-founders and I have been building this platform for a little over a decade that connects buyers and sellers in the lawn care business. So if you have a home, rent a home, you need somebody to mow your yard. Normally, you would call around on Craigslist or Facebook or Yelp or something like that, leave a bunch of voicemails and haggle over price and try to get somebody to mow it for you. GreenPal is the only app where you can just pop your address in. You quickly get free prices from lawn care services nearby you, and you hire one just right through the app. And if it goes well, you push another button and they come every week to mow for you. And that's one less thing you have to worry about. So GreenPal is kind of like DoorDash or Uber or Postmates or Instacart, but for lawn care services.
Got it. Okay. Now, you went from a blue collar situation, which was, what were you working in before you started this online?
Yeah, before I wanted to start the Uber of lawn care, I actually ran a landscaping business for 15 years. I started mowing grass in high school as a way to make extra cash, and then mowed yards through college. And then after college, I thought, maybe I could just stick with this landscaping business. And I made a little business plan and ended up building that into a pretty decent sized company, around 150 employees over a 15-year period of time, and scaled it up to over 8 figures in revenue. And then eventually that business was acquired by a national organization, a national landscaping company that was doing 9 figures in revenue. And so running that business, just from starting off with me and a push mower to eventually selling it, I learned everything there was to learn about the landscaping business. And so after I sold it, I really thought I was just going to kind of almost retire and just do investing and stuff. But I really learned quickly that I needed another mission. I needed another project. And so I thought, well, maybe I could be a tech entrepreneur. Maybe I could build an app that connects buyers and sellers and make it smooth like Uber does for ride sharing. And so that was where the idea came from. But I didn't know how to build a tech product. So my two co-founders and I had to teach ourselves how to build software while building the app. And that took a while, but we became different people in the course of doing that. And I'm glad we did.
That's amazing that you did it yourself and you didn't just hire developers. Why did you do that?
We made that mistake. So that was the first thing we thought. We thought, well, we're business guys and we know the business. We just need the tech guys. And so that was the first thing we thought we would do. We would just hire a development agency, a dev shop to build what our vision was. And I learned really quickly that you can't change order your way to success. When you're building a new technology product, there's just thousands of changes and iterations you have to make to figure out how to build what it is people want. And you just can't cycle through that quick enough by talking to an external development shop. And it just takes too long, and there's somebody else who's pursuing the same vision who's going to beat you to it. And so that was a hard lesson we learned. We wasted a year and $150,000 of our own money trying to pay somebody to do it. And so we realized, okay, we're going to have to learn how to build software if we want to be in the tech business.
Wow. So you actually paid developers that are supposed to save you time, and you felt it was easier, even though you're not techie, to learn that level of tech to build it yourselves.
Yeah, that's really what was required because looking back, it's kind of like saying, I have an idea for a song. I just need to hire a musician to make it for me. And it just doesn't work that way. You're creating something brand new from scratch. And
Mm-hmm.
through that creation process, you have to be a builder, and you
Mm.
can't just farm that piece out. Now, if you're running an established business and you want to like put in some software in that business
Mm.
to make it run smoother, yeah, you can outsource that and should. But if
Mm.
you're building the next thing that does things in a new way, that
Mm.
is bringing innovation to a problem, it's just impossible to outsource that. Um, in the DNA of the founding team has to be the ability to build your way out of problems and figure out solutions.
Okay, so this is fascinating because nobody does that. Like if I wanted to do an app, there's no way I'm going to go learn how to be. I'm just not good at tech, and I wouldn't do that because I have a business. So I would hire developers, but I would work closely with them. So you're saying that wouldn't work for you? Work? It didn't work. Did you work very closely? They just couldn't integrate what you wanted.
Yeah, ideally. So there's a guy named Paul Graham who is the founder of a company called Y Combinator, and they incubate hundreds of these little startup ideas
Mm-hmm.
every year, and they're behind like big names like Airbnb, Stripe,
Mm-hmm.
Instacart. And he has a famous quote: "When they invest in teams, they look for a hacker and a hustler." So
Mm.
so you've got the hustler, which is like the business guy who maybe
Mm-hmm.
is good at sales, who is just driven
That's
to,
me.
yeah, me too. And then ideally you got the hacker, and this
Mm-hmm.
is the person that was like coding up their own little video games in middle
Mm.
school and stuff, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
always like been gravitated towards software
Mm-hmm.
development and engineering. And these two forces come together, and you've got Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's ideal.
Mm.
And in fact, they won't invest in teams unless it's that dynamic.
Mm.
We had three hustlers. None of us, we were three business
Ah.
guys, but none of us had ever built a website. None of us had ever coded anything up. And so
Mm-hmm.
we thought, okay, well, we'll just pay developers. And not only were they not our employees, they were like a third party development agency.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't even on the team. And we might have had a shot if we had enough money to pay them a salary, and they were
Mm.
like in the room with us, on the whiteboard with us, and we
Yes.
could have gone through like the iteration cycles quicker. But really, it's like in the early days, you're just trying to hustle something together, and if you can't build your way out of problems, and
Mm.
you have to rely on somebody else to kind of tell you what's wrong with it and tell you what should happen,
Mhm.
and it's just like it just takes you too long it'll
Right,
take you a week to accomplish what a good team can get done on Monday by 10 o'clock.
right.
So you can't go through the cycles quick enough, and
Okay.
because
Yeah.
you don't know what to build, and so you're building this, trying that,
Mm.
didn't work, back up, go forward. It's just the only way to do it.
Okay, so I'm fascinated. Did all 3 of you learn coding?
So two of us did, and the third learned PR, product,
Mm.
marketing, everything else but that. So I
Okay.
became like the world's most terrible front end developer, and my co-founder went to software school, and he became good at back end, like server side
Mm.
Ruby on Rails stuff. And so
Mhm.
we took this terrible thing that we paid $150,000 for, and we launched that into the marketplace, and we got a couple dozen people to use it, and
Right.
then we would baby them, and then we would use their feedback to
Right.
tell us what we needed to rebuild it, well, how we needed to rebuild it. And so
Okay.
it would be like 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. online classes, YouTube University, paid courses online, and then like
Mhm.
from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. using what we learned to build, and
Wow.
rinse and repeat 6 7 days a week, for 3 years. And
3 years.
3 years.
Wow.
Is how long
Wow.
it took us to learn how to build software, and to completely rebuild the platform. We had another version shipped within a year and a half, but we weren't really good at doing any of this till about year three.
Mm.
And then we made a little bit of money. I mean, a little bit of money. And then we were able to
Mm.
hire developers by the hour to complement what it was we were doing. And so now we were delegating from a position of stewardship, which is
Yes.
here's the product roadmap. Here's what we're working on. We're doing this, this, and this, but this is tedious. So you do that, you do that, you do
Mm.
that. Now we can run faster, and we're delegating from a standpoint of stewardship, and not delegating from a position of abdication, which is like,
Yes.
I don't know how any of this works. You handle it.
Yes.
Call me when it's done.
Exactly.
Usually that doesn't work.
No, because you're just basically at their mercy.
Right.
So wow, that is a wild story. That because there's no way I'm going to spend 3 years learning how to code. It's just not. I'm the hustler type. Okay, now what's interesting is you were telling me that you did not raise funds. You bootstrapped this the whole way. Take us through that.
Yeah, that was honestly when we started, that was kind of the, I guess, the storyline, the allure, the myth, the fantasy, if you will, that we could hack together a prototype, go raise $2 or $3 million in angel funding, and then a
Mm,
year raise 10 million, and then 2 years raise 50, and then we would be off and going. And that is like the storyline you see in on Bloomberg or in
yeah.
TechCrunch. That's the sexy, fun thing to sell about this type of journey. But we started to do that, and I quickly learned that I was wasting my time. That I
Mm,
was running all over town trying to pitch angel investors on this vision when I didn't have any customers, I didn't have a product, I didn't have any real data points or traction, and it was a waste of my time because I needed to be doing all those other things. I needed to be building the product. I needed to be hustling up customers. I needed to be
mm,
hustling up users and getting in the trenches with them, so to speak, to figure out what it
mhm,
is we needed to build. And
mm,
so I was begging people for like $25,000, $50,000 checks. And I did that for 6 months. And I thought, I'm never going to get anywhere with this. I
mm,
just need to build something really good that has a few thousand users and then circle back around to fundraising. And so that's what we
mhm,
did.
mhm,
And it took us another year or two. And we finally got around 1,000 people using this app that connected you with lawn care services. And it wasn't good, but it was a lot better than when we started.
mhm,
But now we were making a little bit of money, and I thought, well, if I can just double this twice,
mhm,
I can raise an angel round of funding every month through revenue.
mm,
And I learned early on that like maybe revenue is the best form of financing. That we could just focus on the users, focus on
mhm,
the customers, listen to them, and let them guide us in terms of how we need to build this thing,
mhm,
and in a way that kind of course corrects you into what's important.
mm,
If you need these people to spend money on your product, you're going to like take their phone call 7 days a week, and
mm,
you're going to hand crank those sales. But more importantly, you're going to get that feedback.
mm,
You're going to get that free R&D that's going to guide you through the darkness of trying to figure out what it is you need to be building. And
right.
so and so after I made that decision where it's like, if we can just double this a couple more times, we won't never need to raise money. And that's what we did.
Okay.
And now we're in year 10, and we're what's called default alive, which basically means you're profitable. You're not having to like rely on the next round of funding to survive, which is a good place to be. That increases your optionality.
Mm. Okay, but you never got funding ever,
Never
did
did.
you?
No.
Now, you said something interesting, and this is actually part of my whole philosophy about business. And I sort of sometimes sit there and wonder why people don't believe what I believe, which is so simple. Cash flow is the oxygen of a business. That's it. The oxygen of a business is not begging other people for money unless you have such a huge, enormous vision you cannot do it yourself. Like I've never gotten any funding for any business, my business at all. I just bootstrapped, made money, and just put money into it. And when people would offer me loans, I'd be like, I don't need a loan. Why do I need a loan?
Yeah, sales cures all, and
It does.
and I think, especially if you're a first time founder, I think really trying to get on first base or second base or third base through,
Mm,
through just your own sheer will of
mhm,
selling a product that people will
mm,
pay for can help reduce the risk a lot. Now here's
mm,
the weird thing. I've built and sold my first company, and now my second company is doing well and growing, and I've never raised any funding for either of them. But
mm,
if like you roll, if Doc from Back to the Future rolled up in the DeLorean and said, "Hey, we got to go back to 2012 and do this all over again," the first thing I would do is raise a bunch of money because I know everything there is to be done, and the money could help me cycle quicker. And so I
mm,
think if you've kind of like been around the block a couple times, and maybe you've got a single or a double under your belt, and you
mhm,
kind of know 80% of what needs to happen to get to success, then the capital can help you move quicker.
mm,
But the problem is a lot of new founders will say, well, I have this idea and I'll go start it if I can raise capital. And it's like, that's not
mm,
the right approach. It needs to be, I built this thing. I have so many customers beating my door down. I can't fulfill the orders, and I need capital to accelerate my way through this so I can get to the next level. I think if you're truly in that position, it makes sense to raise money, but
Mm.
99% of the time, founders are not in that.
No, it's sort of like, gee, if somebody gives me all this money, sure, I'll do it. And I'm like, well, that's not a compulsion to have your vision. It's like, well, yeah, if I get the money, I'll do it. And if I don't, I won't. Well, that's never going to work because you need to be
Yeah,
all in on your idea. And it's
that's
kind of
right.
a spoiled sort of brat kind of attitude. Well, if somebody gives me $1 million, sure, I'll do it. I would never give somebody $1 million with that attitude. I would only give somebody $1 million if they're like, I have this unbelievable mission and this is what I'm doing and I've done all this work already and here are the numbers and I'm going to do this no matter what, but hey, it would help me out if you help me out, right?
Totally.
But
Yeah, that's the right
there's
attitude.
kind of this weird thing, and then you see these people, they're always trying to raise funds. I'm like, but nobody's going to give you money because your energy is off. Like,
Yeah, and
you were compelled to make this happen, but you still did not get money. So you're saying that if you could go back you would get money, but you tried that and that didn't work. So why would you go back and try to do the same thing that didn't work?
well, we kind of abandoned the idea of raising capital in year one or two.
Uh-huh.
It no longer was in my kind of thought sequence.
Mm,
I didn't want to waste any more time doing that. Now,
yeah.
once we started expanding into other markets and we started getting some press, because one of my co-founders, all he did was PR. He emailed
Oh,
100 journalists a day,
great.
and his goal was to get one hit a week.
Hmm.
And so we started getting some press around the business. We started getting some traction. We started retaining users and making some money. Well,
Hmm.
then we started getting inbound from investors. I
Mm,
mean, every week and sometimes
hmm.
every day, we would have VCs emailing us wanting to get on the
Mm.
phone, and we would get on the phone with them in the early days just for the ego boost. But then those calls became a waste of time, and
Right.
so now we kindly decline that inbound. So it's like the Steve Martin quote: "Be so good they can't say no."
Mm,
And so if you can take on that approach where you make it so good, make it such a no brainer, well then investor capital will find you,
mm,
and that's what happened to us. We decided early on, like, I mean, we could raise, $4 or $5 million at whatever stage,
mm,
and build out a team of 100 people around us, but is that really what we want? And if we're
mm,
honest, it wasn't. And so we
mm.
kind of naturally came to that conclusion.
Good, because you're losing control,
Yeah.
and you got to pay the piper. And I think people are in this sort of like delusional thing where they forget that when you take money, you got to pay it back. There's interest. There's all sorts of stuff, and there's ownership. So, if I were you, I would have done what you did and own it. I want to own my stuff. I don't want to be, you're doing all this work and then I've had people tell me that they did all this work and then years later they saw the company and they said, we had so much money coming in, we hardly made any money.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So
where you want to be.
aren't you glad though that you didn't take money now because you have
Very
higher
lucky.
profit?
I was very lucky and very glad, because when I was young and naive, when I was new to this and more naive and didn't know if
Mm,
somebody had thrown that kind of money at me, then I probably would have taken it. And in fact, we did actively in year two or three get to some pretty serious negotiations with a strategic investor that was going to put $5 million in the business, and that went belly up, and that company actually ended up filing for bankruptcy a couple years later. So I would have been tied up in all of that. And
wow.
so one of the luckiest things that did happen to us was that we did not get that money thrown at us, because we would have wasted it all. And then now we've got this cap table that's got somebody else on it, and now they're kind of guiding us with what they want us to do, either sell the business or move quicker, or something like that. And so being in charge of like our destiny in terms of making enough money to where we could meet our expenses and pay ourselves, and being default alive, that was a good place to get to as quick as possible. Now the thing is like, you look at any app on the first screen on your phone, I'm willing to bet all of them are venture backed. And so if you really want to get into this binary outcome of get rich or die trying, then venture capital, if you can get it, is an option. But just know that
Mhm.
that's what you're signing up for. You're
Right.
signing up for a minimum 9-figure exit, most likely $1 billion or above exit. That's what investors want to see. And if you don't achieve that, you will get a zero, and
Mm,
you may waste 5, 10, or 15 years of your life doing it.
mm.
So be aware of that's the path you're going.
Yeah, it could be all or nothing.
That's
Well,
right.
this has been hugely, and by the way, congratulations on your huge success. And it sounds like GreenPal just keeps growing and growing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. When I sold my first company and I started the second, I said, I'm going to just do this as long as I'm having fun and I'm
Hmm.
decent at it. And I'm not like the best CEO, but I'm pretty good at this and I'm having fun doing it. There's been some 100-hour weeks, but I
Mm.
really haven't worked a day in 12 years. This has always been the project I wanted to work on. So I'm very lucky in
Oh,
that.
that's amazing. So, Brian, what's something? I mean, you obviously you've been through a lot, and it's been amazing. Your journey's amazing. What's one thing you want to leave the listeners with, mindset or philosophy?
Yeah, I think there's two things. One, these are things that I try to tell myself all the time. Paul Graham again said that um, when starting a startup, you have to remind yourself that action produces information. And so, a lot of times when we're doing a brand new company, we don't know what to do. We don't know, should I run this ad campaign or this type of ad campaign, or should I price the product at this or price it at that? Is this my customer? Is that my customer? So a lot of times you get this like analysis paralysis, and then like you waste time and don't do anything. And you really have to look at every single decision as an experiment. And this applies to really pretty much any business. If you're running a dry cleaning company or a home painting business or a lawn mowing business like I had, a lot of times like just try it out. Just try this thing out and figure out if it worked or not. That action produces information. So always reducing like your decision making down to how do I treat this as an experiment can be
Mm,
helpful because that can keep momentum going, and with that information then you can make better decisions and you can double down or try a different approach. And then the other piece of that is like you have to be impatient with the actions but patient with the results. And
mm,
so what I mean by that, and I think it was Naval Ramakant that said that, so impatient with actions meaning you have this bias towards action. You're not just sitting around like waiting for something to happen. You're picking up the phone, calling customers. You're emailing 2 or 3 people that used the product last week that don't use it anymore. You're trying out this new SaaS solution that could solve a problem in the business or whatever. You're impatient with the actions, but you're patient with the results. And so you're patient with the sales growth, the user acquisition growth, all of these things. If you can combine those two things that are kind of at odds with one another, it can help. You'll wake up in a new reality in 5 or 10 years.
I love that. People are so impatient with results and they are not taking enough action. As you
That's
know,
right.
I'm a business coach, and I find that if they just, took massive, messy action and just sort of like didn't wait and see what happens, but seeing what happens while they continue that. So I love that you're saying that, and everybody's hearing you say that because I'm all in on that. Like, also, it's interesting because when I first started in my business as a business coach, I read somewhere that business is just one series of tests,
That's right.
and that changed my life. It
Never
wasn't
ending
about
experiment.
yeah, experiment, test. And I thought, now I get it. And I'm glad I read that early on because it changed my mindset of it's just testing. You just test. Did it work? No. Okay. Did it test? Yes. Okay. See what we got from that. So I love that. Okay. Awesome. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed this really amazing episode. And please subscribe, please share, and please say great things about the podcast and tell everybody about us. And we'll see you on the next one.
You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jean Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jean Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.